It's Jake. It's so good to see you again, man.
Yeah, good to see you, Chris.
How are
That
you? How you
wall,
been the
so
last couple of
cool. Wall
months?
said, I've been good. I've been, I was finishing up Beef season two. Kind of went right into that, like right after Thunderbolts came out, and then now we're just in the editing room on that. So it's been fun.
Nice. Well, since I last talked to you for Thunderbolts, I went and watched Thunderbolts twice with my son,
Wow, thank you.
and we loved it, man. It was fantastic. First question I wanted to know, since this is in support of the Blu-ray release,
hmm
were there any deleted scenes in Thunderbolts that you were just heartbroken, to cut out that we can expect to maybe see on the Blu-ray?
I know it would be a better sales pitch if there were. There are a couple deleted scenes, but no, there's nothing that I wish were. I mean, the movie that got put out is the movie that I think Thunderbolt should be. I think there's a few conversations. I mean, there's definitely fun stuff like between the team, but I think, in consideration of the overall pacing and structure and where we need to get to, like I feel good about where that was. I think there's like a little bit of there also just isn't that much. Like it mostly is the movie we made. I mean, the first cut when I came back from set, I think was 2 hours and 5 minutes long, and the one in theaters, I mean, technically it's 2 hours and six, but I mean that's with credits. I think
Right.
it ended up around, an hour 54, something like that. So it's not, there's not a lot, and a lot of that is like shaving within the scenes, that we didn't drop a lot of stuff, like it more or less like followed the structure. So I think there might be one void room for Bob that we ended up replacing. So you can see that, but yeah, it's pretty much the movie made. But there is a lot of fun, like the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, there's a lot of just watching all the crafts people and what they had to do to kind of do all these practical effects, like, and they were there to document so much of that. It's really fun to watch. So.
Now, you took a group of mostly second string or supporting characters, and you really gave them room to shine. Having some time to reflect, who do you think got the biggest glow up in this film, either in terms of story or performance?
Oh man, I mean, I can't
It's
pick
a tough
amongst
question
my,
because
they're like
everybody's
these are,
side to side.
yeah, and then they're all going to text me about it. They're like, how dare you, So I think I'm look, I feel really lucky to have worked with all of them. It's such an incredible cast. They all brought so much to it, and I think that was the fun of the movie was we really felt like, all those things were, it's like if you say it's second string or the stuff that might seem like, a challenge, like we tried to embrace as an opportunity where it's like, and I think David has said this more expressively than I will, but it's like no one there's not the same set of expectations on this. No one really knows exactly what this movie is or what it is, or maybe even necessarily wants this movie, but that gives us a chance to give them something different and to really take swings. And I think that all of the actors embrace that, and they're all very protective over the characters that they've created, and they're never going to let you do something false for what they've done. But at the same time, we talked about it's like, look, in movies, like those arcs that you've been playing, like, those have in some way been resolved. And to make a new movie, we have to have new arcs. We have to have a new journey to send you on. And they all were really, really, like up for that and embracing of it. And it gave them an opportunity, I think, to show sides of those characters that hadn't been shown before.
Absolutely. That final reveal, the Thunderbolts are now the new Avengers. I still love the
hmm
twist and how you guys handled that. How long had you been sitting on that secret, and what sort of hoops did you guys have to jump through to keep that under wraps?
I mean, I was in the first draft of the script that I read like long before I got hired to work on the movie. So, I mean, it had been there from the beginning. Obviously, like we ended up taking, different routes to get to it. Yeah, I mean, look, on one level, it's one line said at the end. So, there's one script page we have to protect. I think like it actually was in some scripts that it probably shouldn't have been, but we ended, we just had it say Thunderbolts in most of the sides that went out. And then on the day, all the extras that were there, we sent them all offset for, like we just had Julia say Thunderbolts, except for the close-up takes, and we sent all the extras away from set. Um, but otherwise, yeah, you just hope things don't leak, and people kept it pretty well under wraps. I'm sure, it snuck out there here and there, and I think, look, I mean, we know there's a knowledge that these things eventually are going to get out there, but you just try to hold on to it as long as you can and build a movie that works, even if there are hints of those things out in the world.
Right. Now, as fans get their hands on the Blu-ray and really dig into the film, is there anything subtle or underappreciated about Thunderbolts that you hope fans pick up a second or third time through?
I think just, like there are, watching the movie, knowing where it's going to get to at the end, we really tried to thread that through the film and, like having that benefit with all of those relics of the Battle of New York and, being on that same street and being in Avengers Tower. We do reference the Avengers in that time quite a bit so that it doesn't feel like it comes out of nowhere, but maybe that's stuff that you could pick up more on a second watch. And then I think just a lot of little like great acting stuff that they're doing, like between Yelena and Bob and hinting at where this is going to go and Yelena's journey and sort of these things that Florence is doing to kind of clock that journey of this kind of like eyes closed, deep breath, open them, like to show her depression in the beginning. And like we're quoting that moment, at four different places throughout. The framing is the same on her stepping off the building as she is stepping into the void. Like we're trying to kind of tie things together visually and performance wise so that it feels like, you know, there was an intent and purpose to where these things land.
Now, there's a relevant reason why I'm asking this, but have you had a chance to watch James Gunn's Superman yet?
Uh, I I was going to this weekend, and then a family thing came up, and I had to, but I'm excited to do so. I can't wait. So
Yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun. I really love what James has done with that world. But I wanted to know, since Century is basically Marvel's answer to Superman, what's the biggest challenge for you introducing a nearly invincible character with that level of power?
yeah, I think that I mean, he's sort of Marvel Superman, except that his kryptonite is this complete dark side, and why he can't ever really just kind of live in the world, of the MCU, like why he tends to always end up with this memory erase in the comics. I think for us, and the scale of the story that we were trying to tell, like we always kind of use the immediacy and the containment of our story as a sort of advantage where like the power set is limitless, but he's just learning how to do this in that sequence where he wipes the floor with them. I mean, he himself is not even cognizant of all of the powers that he has. So, the suggestion is once he gets a handle on it, it's only going to go further. And you can imagine the kind of full Superman level stakes that this could go on. But for our movie, on this more kind of intimate character level and the action that we've been portraying, like we're going to keep it to just, like definitely like the tone of the action expands there, but not to full like, you know, lifting buildings level yet. You know.
No, dude, that sequence is like probably my favorite fight in the whole movie, and it's, just getting that across the way that that Superman level type of character can real. I mean, you made him scary in that sequence. Was there any like when you were filming that or storyboarding it or whatever, preparing it, was there any spots where you were like, we need to up the ante here or pull back? How did you envision that as you guys were writing that scene out?
Yeah, I think like we just wanted, and like those are Federico D'Alessandro, one of our amazing storyboard artists. Like that was the sequence he worked on the most. And, the thing we just kept talking about is like, it's got to be about, in order to limit this enough so that it doesn't just feel ridiculous, it's got to be about discovering these powers. So each move needs to show something new. You know what I mean? And it also should, if it can, like incorporate Bob's uncertainty and his discovery of that as it's happening, as opposed to completely confidently displaying those powers. And that's really like again, each action sequence like has a concept to it and a kind of guiding principle. And that was the guiding principle for that one is that like we're not going to be able to like it'll feel like a wild tonal jump if he's already at the peak of his powers here. But if we can watch him discover them,
Yeah.
then that'll keep it within a range that this movie can accomplish.
Yeah, dude, it's such a cool sequence. I love it. It's so much fun to watch. He's so scary. When you direct an ensemble like this, and then knowing the Russos are utilizing the characters next in Doomsday, considering that you were so instrumental in developing them, is it difficult for you on any level handing them off to another team?
Uh, I've said this before, but Florence joked like when we went, because I was there when they did the post-credit scene, but I was just on set in the background. She said it was like being dropped off at school by your parent, and like turning over your shoulder to wave goodbye and good, do well, study, No, look, the thing is, almost all of these characters were, created before I came along, and I think that like that's just part of the way these worlds work. And I mean, the Russos have done such incredible work in this space. I think it's fun for me, because those movies have a different tone and there is a different context to them. The goal was to see if we could take these characters from where they were and our new versions of them, and if we could bring them to a point where, again, even if it seems odd at first, if you squint, you're like, oh, maybe this could work, or maybe it can't. And we're not saying that this is going to go smoothly. The fun is watching like what on earth is going to happen with that going forward. And I think for me, it was fun that day just being on that set where you're like as big as our movie, like it's a big movie for me, but there is this even bigger context to this world and all the other characters that are in it. And to see those characters now in that context, there was a lot of fun to that, and it felt different in a way that it should feel different. So yeah, I'm just excited to see what happens with them.
Yeah. Now maybe this isn't a fair question because you have some inside scoop I'm not aware of, but if you had to guess, coming out of Doomsday, who do you think will be the leader of the new Avengers?
I think what's fun with them is that everyone could realistically imagine that they are the leader, and I think that like watching that kind of dynamic play out, I mean, obviously, like it would make a lot of sense for it to be Bucky, but that's not a role that he's necessarily been comfortable with. I think that like any one of them could imagine that it ought to be them, and they all bring something to that. But I have no insight whatsoever into what happens, and I think getting to watch, I mean, the way all of those characters will play against each other will be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Sir, one last thing I wanted to tell you was congrats on X-Men. Is that a done deal? Is that a thing that's happening?
I can say nothing about that,
Oh,
unfortunately.
okay.
Sorry.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
Well, all I'm selfishly hoping, if you are doing X-Men, just call it Uncanny X-Men. That's where I'm at with.
If that's a thing, then I will take your notes and I will deliver it to the relevant and
it.
proper authorities. And
Jake, you
yeah.
are a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you so much for that. Now obviously you've directed Marvel now, you've done a little Star Wars. What's one other dream franchise that you would have a hard time saying no to if the offer came up?
Oh man, that's interesting. I really, since nothing is coming to mind this instant, like I didn't, the Star Wars thing, like I just got to work with my friends, like I've known John and Ford since college, and that was really about like just getting to work together. Obviously, the scale was massive, and it's funny that it's in a Star Wars universe. Like I think I've been really lucky in the last 4 years to work with people that I'm genuinely friends with or became friends with through the work, and people who I really admire and whose work I don't think I could do any of this stuff without. So like I'm much more focused at this point about just continuing to find opportunities to work with, people that I like and trust and I feel lucky to get to work with. Than there is some kind of perfect franchise or perfect project out there. Like I think the opportunity is just to get to keep working in these spaces at all and create things that, where you get to take swings. That to me has been the most special. So that's my long-winded way of not having a good answer to your question. But yeah.
Well, last question for you, and then I'll get out of your hair. But as a guy, you're building up such a cool career. You're working with so many people. This is a question that I really like to ask people who've worked with a lot of people that I admire in the same way that
Mhm.
you're talking about people that you admire. Who's somebody that you've worked with up to this point in your career that you feel like you've been the most starstruck by, or somebody that's just like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm actually working or meeting this person?
Um, can't give the real answer to that question. Can do that off record in a second. I I just, man, the actors in the last, I mean, like, you know, growing up, like watching Julia, like her work in Seinfeld, I think is some of the best acting in that decade. And then on Veep, I mean, she's just been so great at every point in her career. Like it just was the real, it was hard to believe that that was happening, but I've been lucky enough to have a lot of those moments with a lot of incredible actors, with Jim Carrey. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of pinch me moments. I would work with any of this cast again in a heartbeat and like couldn't believe how good they were every day. So yeah.
Yeah, that I totally understand. I've interviewed Jim like 3 times now, and the last time I interviewed him, he actually said my name when I walked into the room, and I was like, "Oh my God," you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like it's
Yeah,
just
that's yeah, yeah,
it's such a weird like that blows my mind. So
yeah.
yeah, totally understand. Sir, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Like I said, we loved Thunderbolts, and I cannot wait to see what you do next. I'm fingers crossed that it's X-Men. I would love to see you tackle them. So thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Yep.